Let's begin by saying that how do I know if intercultural marriage is for me? And again, as I mentioned last week, I will use intercultural, interracial, mixed marriages, all of these to mean more or less the same thing. In the academic fields, they're all used to mean the exact same thing. So intercultural marriage is just like any other marriage, has its strengths, but also has its challenges. Some of the strengths would be that you have two people who are coming together, who share a common culture. And you would say, what do you mean by a common culture? Yes, we have a new Canadian culture that is the norm for everyone. Yes, some of us might look different, and that's one of the great things about Canada, is that we all may look different from outside, but in our heart inside, there's a common culture that unites all of us. Like I might look a lot different than most normal people walking in the street, but once you speak with me, you know, I could be like any other Joe bro guy who, you know, loves sports and talks trash on the basketball court and and enjoys the same thing like any other Canadian guy, right? Some of us might look Asian, some would look Middle Eastern or African or South American or Caucasian, white Caucasian, European, right? But there's a common culture that unites all of us, which is the multicultural that we all live in growing up in Canada. So two people who meet one another and are comfortable together and they share similar values, they speak the same language and same interests more or less, and they find interest in one another and they want to share a life together. They also are looking for companionship and hopefully starting a family together and having children, getting old together and leaning on one another when they need a cane and when they have no more teeth in their mouth and they have, you know, losing their memory, and they share their dreams and their aspirations together. They just see, they're two regular people who don't see each other through the eyes of ethnicity or racism or differences, but they see in one another similarities. And that's how it all starts. And they have feelings, strong feelings toward one another, and they want to pursue this relationship. Just like any other couple, same culture couple. But also there are challenges, because there are some added challenges when it comes to cross-cultural marriage. First of all, we'll start with the common challenge between any other kind of marriage. The institution of marriage currently is under tremendous pressure, not just in cross-cultural marriages, but also same-culture marriage. Divorce rates are on the rise, and people may choose, you know, cohabitation instead of marriage, or people just don't want to be in a committed relationship. They just want to leave things on the loose. Infidelity, and just losing interest in the long term on one another, and having unresolved issues, lack of communication. But on top of that, there could be other baggage that they may bring into the marriage. For example, things that they have seen in their own parents growing up. Maybe the father was a little bit abusive, or the mother, you know, had her own mind in doing things and was more stubborn, or whatever the reasons are. Cultural expectations, and even though we all have a common kind of culture, which is the Canadian multicultural, nevertheless, we are all influenced somehow by our mother culture that our parents came from, or maybe we grew up a bit in that culture. And that could be, you know, music, arts, dance, hobbies, interests, careers, whatever that is, you have some kind of gender expectations. And that could also play a role in adding some pressure on the marriage. So some of the points I want to mention now are not specifically only for cross-cultural marriages, but cross-cultural marriages are part of making the decision, if it's for us, if it's for you, or it's not. But it could also be general advice to anyone who is getting into a serious relationship. So I need to ask myself a few questions. Number one, does this relationship bring me closer or farther from God? So for example, by being in this relationship, am I a better Christian or not? Is this person taking me away from God, or are they bringing me closer to God? Am I able to be myself in this relationship? Does this person bring out the best in me? Like we see some relationships where the couple are always fighting, or one of the two is always crying and they're burdened. Like the other person is unable to bring out the best in them. So I have to ask myself and be very truthful. Now there's a reality in that within the Christian family, again, we mentioned last time that out of all the couples that I interviewed, all of them were in Christian marriages, even though some of them married outside of the Coptic church. Some of the people who married outside the church ended up rejoining the Coptic church, others did not. And then there are others who got married in the Coptic church. But the bottom line is that all of them placed a very important value on the Christian aspect of the relationship. So they needed to be with someone who is a faithful Christian, a strong Christian, because they grew up knowing God and knowing the church, and they valued the faith, the Christian faith, and the sacramental life, and reading the scriptures and prayer. Maybe possibly went to many outings with the church and conferences and conventions and sleepovers and all of these things. So they wanted to have that in their marriage, in their family, and also pass it on to their children. So I want to ask myself, is this relationship making me a better person, a better Christian, or is it drawing me away from God? And here I need to interject with the idea of interdenominational marriages, because we speak about intercultural, so two people of different cultures. But also we have the interreligious marriages. We briefly spoke about it last week, is that Christianity remains to be a very important part of, us as a Coptic community who want to get married, so don't want to marry someone from another religion. Like some people say, okay, you can stay in your religion and I'll stay in my religion and we'll make this work. So this doesn't work, and it's a total disaster. I mean, if the couple choose not to be in any religion, then it might work for them. But as a Coptic community, that hasn't been the case. But to add to that, there's the dimension of the interdenominational marriages. Now, we have more or less three main categories in the Christian family that we can consider. There's the Orthodox, there's the Catholic, and then there's the Protestant families. We're not even going to consider Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons, because these groups are not considered to be Christians, so we treat them. So anyone who denies the divinity of Jesus Christ is not considered to be Christian. So that's just the main definition for that aspect. So within the family of Orthodoxy, we have what is called the Oriental Orthodox and then the Eastern Orthodox. The Oriental Orthodox are 6 churches, being the Coptic Church, the Armenian, the Syrian Church, the Indian, and the Eritrean, and I'm missing one. Which one am I missing? Ethiopian Church. I missed the Ethiopians. How can I miss the Ethiopians? Sorry. Okay. So within these churches, so this might look like an ethnic marriage, right? So let's say someone who's from India, and we've had like Indian Orthodox, and someone who's a Coptic Orthodox. There's no problem at all in marrying in either churches. You can marry in the Syrian church, you can marry in the Armenian church, or the Eritrean church, or Indian Orthodox Church of Malankara. And there was no problem at all with taking communion in any of those churches. Once, we go to the Eastern Orthodox Church, which is the Greek, the Russian, the Antiochian, the Bulgarian, the Romanian, all of this family of 14, now 15 churches because of the OCA, Orthodox Church of America. These are called the Oriental Orthodox. Now we start to get into a little bit of differences. It's not as much differences, okay, because most of the differences in the theological differences have been resolved already. But still there needs to be a review of the main differences in the church, faith, and there has to be an anointing with the holy oil, a confirmation, for the couple to be married in the Coptic Orthodox Church. Now the Catholic Church is also extremely close to the Orthodox faith. They have sacramental life. The Catholic Church has, it's an apostolic church established by one of the apostles. You have communion, confession, fasting, you have saints, all of these things, But the Middle Ages has been a bit rough, and there were several differences that arose out of the schism that happened in 451. This is when our church kind of departed from the rest of the world. We're not going to go into the differences today because that's not our topic. We can do it on another day. But again, the last visit of His Holiness Pope Tawadros to Toronto in September, he spoke with the clergy, and he said if a Catholic person wants to join the Orthodox Church, this person needs just to know the faith and the differences between the churches, and again, all they need is the holy confirmation with the Maroon oil. So we'll accept the baptism. Until very recently, we had to rebaptize. There are some discussions on Catholics joining the Orthodox Church. Some people say just even take the water of the baptism and anoint them with the baptism water and then anoint with the oil. Others are still very strict to say, no, you have to rebaptize Catholics. Again, it's another topic for another discussion. There's still a lot of things happening around that topic, okay? But the main thing is the faith. If someone is coming from the Protestant church, again, depending on which Protestant church, because there are different teachings in different Protestant churches, with all love and respect and understanding, and we do not believe in bashing anyone or in putting down anyone in their theology and their dogma. All we need to do is gently and kindly speak and discuss the Orthodox faith and traditions and explain it and hope that they accept it. Once they accept it, they have to be rebaptized. So again, for the Protestant church, because they don't have the sacraments and they don't have priesthood, they have to be rebaptized or baptized to start with if they haven't been baptized before, and then they can join the Coptic Church as an initiation into the church. We'll speak about nurturing later, but at least this is a point that has to be considered in coming to the Orthodox Church. A lot of explanation and a lot of understanding that the church might be foreign to them, and they need to gently and kindly understand all the treasures that we may have in the Orthodox Church. Now I have to give you an idea that if someone marries outside of the Coptic Church, even if you are born and baptized in the Coptic Church, you are unable to partake of the Holy Communion afterwards. Okay, so I hope that this point is clear because it is in the rules of the church. When you are married in one of the Oriental churches, Oriental Orthodox churches, the 6 churches that we mentioned, there is no problem at all to take communion in any of the churches. But once you marry outside of that circle, then you cannot take the Holy Communion until you come back to the church and the other partner needs to be either anointed or rebaptized, and then have the marriage blessed in the Orthodox Church, and then you can start taking the Holy Communion again. So it's really important for us as you approach cross-cultural marriage to ask some of these questions. Does this marriage ensure for myself my faith and my practice? Not just doing it for the sake of, let's go, I'll do it, I'll get baptized. If you want to baptize me, no, we want to be genuine and honest, and you have to ask yourself these questions. Is your spouse, your partner, your friend genuinely joining the church for the sake of the church and to practice faith in the Orthodox Church, or is it just something superficial so you can get married? Do you share the same understanding of Orthodox marriage, that it is a sacrament in the church that is unbreakable, that it's a lifelong commitment. This is something that you need to discuss together. Some people say, lifetime is too long. Even if you go to jail after 25 years, you can you can have parole, or a lifelong commitment is too long. This is life without parole. No chance of parole. It's like the worst crime that anyone could ever commit. Like, come on, man, give me a break. No. Some of the Orthodox theologians even say that marriage follows you in heaven, in eternity. I hope this is not more discouraging. Oh my God, I'm going to have my husband with me even in heaven. I thought this is, because in marriages here in the West, they say, until death do us apart. And they say, no, tricked you. You go up there and say, surprise! What? Are you kidding me? You really want to see if this person is your soulmate or not, right? Like, life already has its own challenges. You want your spouse to be someone who comforts you and to be there in time of need. And someone that you are best friends with, not only, a business transaction. You want to be together because you know that this is a life commitment. Do you share the same understanding, the same values leading up to marriage? Sometimes there's a pressure from one of the two for conjugal union prior to marriage. This is not part of the church faith. We have to understand to keep our purity even before marriage until God blesses this relationship. It's not something just simple to say, well, I'm letting go of my values with the hope that, we get married and everything is going to be okay. No, we have to share together that we have to do what God wants, not what we feel or what the culture around us teaches or permits or doesn't permit. And if this person says, well, if you don't agree, then I'll leave, then leave. Because you want to establish a foundation for your future. And if this person doesn't share with you some of the more important values as a Christian that maybe you grew up with, then you have to guess that. Are you a better person when you're together? Do you communicate well? How do you deal with your fights and the conflict resolution? Do you hurt one another intentionally? Some people, when they argue, they say mean things to each other to intentionally hurt each other. That's not someone that you can depend on in time of need. In the time when you're weak, you want the other person to be strong to carry you and to uplift you and to be there for you. Are there major cultural differences or expectations between you, like different ceremonies or traditions? Like some of the relationships that I was involved in counseling and guiding, the person would say, okay, I'll join the church, but there are certain ceremonies that are traditional heritage, for my family that have practiced for hundreds of years that I still want to be part of. And if this partner is not Christian, these things could be, idol worship or some of the Buddhist traditions or Hindu traditions of offering to idols and things like that, fruits and food and or ancestor worship or things like that. Like, is that person genuinely Christian? Okay, there are some things where we can't compromise in. Yes, there are many things that you can compromise in, cultural things. But when it comes to faith, when it comes to beliefs, that there is only one true God, there isn't another God that we should be worshiping, then when it comes to faith, I cannot compromise. There's some things that just can't, no matter how much. Because if we compromise our faith from the beginning of the relationship, we know that things are not going to end up very well. And then what about the family dynamics? Is your family in agreement of this marriage? We definitely want their blessing as you are merging two families together. Let's speak a bit about family dynamics, which is our second point. Family dynamics related to intercultural marriages. For whatever sociological reason, Many members of the Coptic community grew up with very closed, racist mindsets. And there are many reasons. I'm not a sociologist, so I'm not gonna try to be, to figure out exactly what went wrong or what happened. This is not my expertise, but I can share some things from my experience. The Coptic community, just like many other ethnic communities around the world, grew up very segregated from the world. The Islamic invasion of Egypt, which happened in the 7th century, made it a matter of survival for the Coptic community to enclose themselves in order to preserve their faith, which they were persecuted for, and their language, their heritage, and their customs and traditions. Nevertheless, Egypt was always a place of invasion. It's not the Islamic invasion. Most of the countries around the world kind of passed through Egypt and abused the Coptic community for a few decades or a few hundred years. Okay, from the Roman Empire to the Arabs to the Ottoman Empire to the British to the French, you just name it. Everyone was really wanted to have a part of Egypt because of its strategic geographical location. In many of these occasions, the Copts or the Egyptians in general saw that the invaders or the West or the East were there to take advantage of them, not so much to nurture them or their community or their faith. So automatically there was a kind of antagonism built towards the other as being the bad. Also, we can say that in contemporary times, the media has played a role to demonize the West. Hollywood and social media always reflects the bad things about any community. Like when you think of Arabs today, you always think about, the crazy guy with the bombs wrapped around his face and riding on a camel, and they're going to blow up like 50 people or something like that. Or any movies that you see now, that's the best impression of Arabs now, the people who are backwards and who are still riding on camels and horses and holding swords in their hands. So stereotypes have played a big role actually in trying to understand one another, because people are ignorant in general. Okay, I'm going to be fair now to say whether you're from the East or from the West, people are ignorant about the other, and they always see the stereotypes or the negatives that are portrayed in the social media that is around us. Also, on top of these things, there are some ideologies that certain communities want to uphold, which they feel are lacking in others. So it's always us against them. It's us against the other. We are the ones who preserved morality. This community, this culture is immoral. Look at what they do, and look at these, and look at that. And then becomes what is called a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you want to validate what you are thinking, what your stereotypes are about the others, about cultures. All people who come from this community, from this culture, have a stereotype, and I can just label them. And by labeling them, I'm giving myself validation that I'm better. Or at least if I'm not better, let them be. God bless them. Maybe they are the best people in the whole world, just as long as they stay away from me. I don't want to intermingle with them. So there was false assumptions that if we separate ourselves from the rest of the world, then we can keep ourselves pure, related maybe to the whole Aryan master race as we mentioned in the beginning. But this also is not related to only people of other ethnicities or races, but started to be people of other religions and denominations. And it's always, there's a sense of competition. I am better than the other because. And even if people come from the exact same faith and ethnicity and religion, just because I live, in the north, I don't come from the south, then somehow I am better, or it's a different culture. We're different than them. It's not going to work because we're different. So all of these things have played a role in what many parents think about cross-cultural marriages, cross-denominational relationships, etc.